Famine, starvation, and death have stalked humankind throughout history. Whether caused by drought, disease, pestilence, or human conflict, millions have perished when they could find no food. Famine knows no geographical boundaries. From South Asia to Africa to Ireland, stories of acute suffering and large-scale deaths have been all too common. But now, for the first time in history, thanks to the vision and leadership of the 2003 World Food Prize Laureate, the international community possesses the capacity to rush life-saving food anywhere around the globe, dramatically rescuing millions facing starvation and agonizing death. Born in central New York, our laureate grew up with a passion for music and dreamed she might one day be a professional musician, playing clarinet with a symphony orchestra. But when she was a teenager, her father Fulvio's run for election to the City Council of Cortland, New York, awakened in her an interest in government. That led to her attending a summer camp on public affairs. It was a transforming, life-changing experience, one that instilled in her a conviction of the power of public service to alleviate the problems confronting society. And while music continued to be an important part of her life, that summer camp experience inspired our laureate to pursue political science at the State University of New York at Albany, and led to her first job in the office of New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller. From New York, our laureate's career path took her to Chicago, first managing government relations and philanthropic affairs for a major American company, and then a foray into politics in an energetic but unsuccessful bid for election to Congress. After a fellowship at the John F. Kennedy Institute of Politics at Harvard, our laureate moved to Washington, D.C., where she came face to face with the issues of poverty and nutrition. Her appointment by President Ronald Reagan in 1987 at the Department of Health and Human Services was followed by a position as Assistant Secretary of Agriculture. Those experiences brought our laureate into contact with women affected by government food programs. In that process, she learned that giving women more control over their food sources enabled them to provide better nutrition for their families. In 1992, then-President George Bush nominated our laureate to be the executive director of the United Nations World Food Program in Rome. 5 years later, President Bill Clinton, impressed by her superb performance, renominated her for a second term. It was in this decade that our laureate spearheaded the change that would bring about an historic breakthrough achievement in confronting large-scale famine. Under her leadership, the UN World Food Program was transformed from essentially an agricultural development agency into a logistical juggernaut, able to move large amounts of food great distances in a short period of time, making it the largest and most responsive food relief organization in all history. This change came at a critical moment, for during her tenure, our laureate was confronted with seemingly endless humanitarian crises. Hurricane Mitch in Latin America, drought in the Horn of Africa, floods in Mozambique, severe malnutrition among refugees in Kosovo, acute hunger affecting over 1/3 of the population in North Korea, and civil war in Afghanistan all created extraordinary needs for emergency food relief. Over 50 million people faced hunger and starvation. Yet in every instance, our laureate and her dedicated World Food Program staff were able to successfully confront famine and prevent large-scale deaths. UN Secretary General Kofi Annan praised our laureate and her staff for their critical role in getting food to 16 million people in the drought-ravaged Horn of Africa. Subsequently, our laureate faced an even more challenging task in getting food to 9 million people on the brink of starvation in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan as winter closed in. Former President George Bush, a member of the World Food Prize Council of Advisors, said she and her staff worked a logistics miracle in getting emergency food aid to millions in that mountainous country. And wherever she has worked, our laureate has been a protector of children. Under her leadership, 3.3 million North Korean children were rescued from severe malnutrition by a special feeding program she initiated. Believing that food assistance could be a key to keeping children, particularly young girls, in school, our laureate worked closely with Ambassador George McGovern in implementing the U.S.-sponsored Global School Feeding Program that helped improve the health and livelihood of 16 million children in 64 countries. As a result of the changes she made, the World Food Program has become known around the world for its ability to get assistance to those desperately in need, delivering food by whatever means necessary. At our laureate's direction, the World Food Program repaired the transportation infrastructure in the Beira corridor of southern Africa, rebuilt the Georgia-Armenia-Azerbaijan railroad line, carried out the largest humanitarian airdrop in history in the Sudan, and even delivered food on the backs of elephants and mules when circumstances demanded. But if you were to ask our laureate what her most important achievement was, she would likely say it was her decision to channel international food aid through women to ensure widespread and effective distribution. Relying on that insight she gained when talking with poor women in America a decade earlier, our laureate came to understand
that if we can empower women who are the people in every society who manage the food in the household, if we can empower women and give women the food and the options to manage that food, that we will be able to decrease hunger in every community, in every family, and in every country.
As a result of this innovative change, more than 60% of all World Food Program assistance is now delivered through women. Our laureate is also a forceful advocate for women's rights. She has increased the number of senior positions filled by women at the World Food Program and has championed opportunities for women in developing countries. For example, in Afghanistan, she put Afghani women in charge of World Food Program bakeries, providing bread for the poor and hungry. When the Taliban issued an edict that women could no longer be employed and ordered the bakeries closed, our laureate responded forcefully by halting all food shipments to the country. The Taliban quickly backed down, and the bakeries stayed open. The tragic deaths of numerous UN staff members have brought into sharp focus the fact that the United Nations agencies and personnel are on the front lines of the global battle to defeat poverty, hunger, and famine. But despite the danger and difficulties involved, in the 10 years our laureate led the World Food Program, the agency saved more people from starvation and death than any other organization in the world, and delivered life-sustaining food aid to over 700 million people in more than 100 countries. For transforming the World Food Program into the largest and most responsive relief agency in the world, Secretary General Kofi Annan selected our laureate to be the United Nations Under-Secretary General for Management in 2002. And now in 2003, it is most fitting that the young woman who once dreamed of a career in music and who has now reached the pinnacle of a career in public service be recognized with the foremost international award for increasing the quality, quantity, or availability of food. For her exceptional humanitarian achievements, for giving the international community for the first time in history the ability to confront famine anywhere in the world, and for the inspiration she provides to young girls and women from America to Asia and from Africa to Afghanistan, the 2003 World Food Prize is presented to Catherine Anne Bertini.